I don't know if this episode killed Star Wars, but it definitely killed the fandom. And it, we're jumping in the crypt. Episode 3, let's go. So I watched this episode twice. I watched it once at work last night, and then I watched it when I got home this morning. And the best way that I can describe the way that I'm feeling about this episode is conflicted. The first time I watched it, I actually enjoyed it. I walked away liking it. And then when I got home and I watched it again and I thought about it, I had a lot of problems with it. And like I said, I don't know if this actually killed Star Wars. I don't know if it broke lore, but we're gonna figure it out. So I'm gonna actually jump into the stuff that I didn't like about it. I kind of want to get that out the way. And there's a little bit to get into in regards to dislikes. First thing that I want to say is that this show still feels very CW-like as far as its sets go. I'm not immersed into this world. It very much looks like a set, and I can tell that I'm watching a show, and that kind of kills it for me. Second thing, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, the young actresses were horrible. I don't want to dogpile them too much because they are young. They can grow. I just think that they gave a performance that made the entire episode very hard to watch, very hard to get into. It was not good acting. It was not good chemistry between the two twins. A lot of the scenes were both cringe and sometimes even laughable. It took me out of it, and it made me more focused on their bad acting rather than what was going on in the show. And I think we had a real high bar set for child actors in Star Wars after the Kenobi series. And mind you, I didn't like the Kenobi series. However, I think that Vivian Blair as young Leia was a standout for that show, and she bodied that role and played it really well. And these young actresses that were portraying May and Osha just did not meet that bar. And like I said, it made the episode very hard to watch all the way through because they're the leads of this episode. But I'll leave that there. Moving on, Mother Coral, the Zabrak lady and the other mother of May and Osha, she got on my damn nerves too. Without context of why she's so mad at the Jedi, it was kind of hard to find her anger believable in the way that she was playing it. I felt like it was kind of over the top, and it was more annoying than it was interesting. She just got on my nerves, man. The CGI witch, the one that looked like Maz from the sequel trilogy, just hella old. I thought the CGI that was done on her was horrible. $180 million budget, and I can't tell you where that money went because it was very visible that this was CGI, and they definitely did Torben wrong. I just want to throw that out there. We saw what he looked like in the trailers. I didn't even actually put together that that was him as the young Padawan until this episode, but last episode they did him horribly wrong in the way that they made him look. Again, $180 million budget. You think that the prosthetic effects or the VFX or whatever to make him look older would be better, and they just were not. The chanting ascension scene where the twins are about to ascend into being full witches, I thought was the weirdest ascension to full witch scene in all of witchery. It was just weird. I didn't like the song. I didn't like the movements. There's one of the witches, as Mother Anasera is talking, she's like doing this type thing.
We were on the brink of extinction.
And it just felt out of place. You know what? I take that back. If she was not in that scene and we didn't see her make that noise, it would have definitely worked for some background noise, I think. But seeing her do it, that was weird. And lastly, maybe, I think the dialogue in this episode fell short. There's a part in this episode where Master Indara is trying to take the kids, or she's trying to meet the kids, and she tells Mother Anasera, you can't deny the Jedi have the right to test for potential Padawans. Without your permission, of course. So she absolutely could have denied him. And I felt like that was a very contradicting line. Unless I'm missing something, let me know. I don't know. But I just didn't like that. She contradicted herself in the same line. And I don't think that that was lazy. I just think that that was stupid. Okay, moving on into some of the things that I did like. There's a few. I think the idea of this setting in Brendok was actually kind of cool. The far away shots that we get of their castle on this mountain with the planet or sun in the background, I thought that was dope. That was cool. The area with the tree, not so much. But I do kind of like the darker aesthetic that they're going for with this show, and it worked for this episode, especially because of the whole witch background and stuff. That was pretty cool. Secondly, I've said it before, and despite her comments in Star Wars Celebration last year, Jodie Turner-Smith is a phenomenal actress. I think she bodied her role. I think she knew what her assignment was, and she executed it very well. Her lines hit, her demeanor and her cadence and her care when she's talking to the kids, I think work very well. She's a great actress. She just says some dumb shit. I think that the portrayal of the Jedi in this episode is interesting because they almost set them up like the antagonist. And I guess for the purposes of this episode, they are. Master Indira is very cold and she's very straightforward, but kind of in a disrespectful way. And then you have her young Padawan who obviously feels awkward even being there. He just got dragged along with his master, so shame on her. Kelnaka, I don't even know what to make of Kelnaka yet. He seems kind of genuine, you know, like the big old cuddly Wookiee, but we don't understand what the hell he's saying. I don't know. And then you have Soul, who still is a standout for this show. He is definitely very Qui-Gon-like in the way that he's played and portrayed. He's very genuine. You can tell that he cares and is kind of the opposite of what most of the Jedi, or at least the Jedi that we've seen already, is like. And I think that at the end, when we see the fact that he even sheds a tear for Osha and her loss, shows a level of compassion, care, and even attachment that most of the Jedi discourage and don't have. And the actor portraying Soul just does a phenomenal job. Again, like I said in the last review video, for somebody who supposedly learned English for this role, he is killing his dialogue. He is killing the emotion. He is doing a great job, and I really enjoy watching him on screen. I felt so many different emotions tugging at me watching this episode both times. There was a lot of discourse. There is a lot of discourse on Twitter, online in general, talking about how this episode ruined Star Wars. It's changing the Force, and it's demeaning to the legacy of Anakin. And I'm gonna play both sides for a minute. I don't know that this show is doing that. The way that I'm able to wrap my brain around it and kind of get around it is I think that this show is showing us a different culture that is introducing a different interpretation of the Force. And I don't think that that's something new. The Jedi and the Sith, they have different views of the Force. The Night Sisters have a different view of the Force. Bendu from the Rebels series has a different view of the Force. And not to make it religious, I'm not going to, but I think that that is similar to the idea of a god or God, and the fact that that's interpreted differently by different religions, different cultures, and different beliefs. And when you have a galaxy as big as it is in Star Wars, I don't think it's outside of the realm to think that other areas, other cultures, other places might view the Force differently. So I don't think that this show is changing the Force. I think it's giving another interpretation. And some people might agree with that interpretation. You know, the Jedi and the Sith usually refer to destiny as being like your fate, something you can't change, and being something you kind of follow. While these witches in this episode, more specifically Mother Anasera, is saying that you get to choose your destiny. You get to make the choice and choose the direction that you go. And I don't think that that's a bad take. Now, in regards to demeaning the legacy of Anakin, I don't think that this does that either. I don't think that it makes Anakin any less special. Honestly, I think that this speaks much more to just the power of Mother Anasera. I keep saying Anasera. It's Anasea. I got it. But I think it's speaking more so to her power. Even though this episode didn't do a very good job of showing the use of the Force in their culture, I thought it was kind of weak. I think it's pretty much implied that she is very powerful in the Force. I know that they call it the thread, but I'm not calling it the thread. It's the Force, goddammit, take it or leave it. But I think that we're supposed to know that she is ridiculously powerful in the Force. And the concern is that she basically created these twins and birthed them through the Force. I don't know how the hell that happened because we only got some dialogue about it. It would have been better to see something about it. But in my suspense of disbelief, because now we're at the point with Star Wars where some things you have to just suspend your disbelief. Like I was saying earlier, it's a big galaxy. If this person over here can do a power, it makes sense that maybe somebody elsewhere who's maybe equal in power could do it also. And what I'm referring to more so is Plaguies and his creation of Anakin. And I know that the Plagueis book isn't really canon and it's never flat out said it. I know that there's a comic that kind of alludes to Palpatine being Anakin's father, but in the Plagueis book, there's a moment after he kind of learns how to manipulate the midichlorians to heal himself. he reaches out into the Force and attempts to create a being. Now, for all intents and purposes, and as far as Plagueis knows, it doesn't work. And he leaves it alone. He doesn't mess with it again. He doesn't even really think about it again until Anakin's presence is there, until he finds out that Anakin is at the temple, that Qui-Gon believes he found the chosen one and that he was born of the Force. Then Plagueis' mind starts going and is like, oh damn, did I do that?
Did I do that?
So even though that's technically Legends now, until they say otherwise, that's my headcanon. But what I'm saying is that Plagueis was a very powerful Sith. And if he found this one way to create life, in my mind, it's not hard to believe that somebody from another culture with different knowledge of the Force, with different ways of interpreting the Force, could also do that. If you really wanted to play benefit of the doubt, who knows how many times she has tried before and failed. Maybe this was just a one-time thing. It definitely elevates the twins as far as them being special, and I get that people wanted Anakin to be the only special one. That was what was special about him, was being born of the Force. He is the chosen one. And while I tend to agree, I don't think that this episode takes away from that. Because let's say they even do try to go to the chosen one route. Maybe that's what's sparking the interest in Soul, is maybe he thinks that Osha, or even Osha and May, were or are the chosen one. I don't have a problem with that either. Only if it's shown later that that's not the case. Because you gotta imagine this prophecy has been around for a long time. The Jedi have known about this prophecy. This being 70 or so years before the Phantom Menace, not 100 years like I thought. It said 100 years before A New Hope. So this is about 70, 80 years before the Phantom Menace. And even before, you got to think that there have been situations where the Jedi have probably thought, oh, this is the chosen one, and we're wrong. So that wouldn't bother me if that's what they thought initially, as long as, like I said, it gets revealed that that was not the case. Because at the end of the day, they are not the chosen ones. Anakin is the chosen one.
You got to remember, this is one movie, and it's meant to be seen 1 through 6. So I think when you watch the actual movie in order, the story will become very clear that Anakin is the chosen one. And even when Anakin turns into Darth Vader, he is still the chosen one.
Some, I guess, would argue that it was Luke, but no, it was Anakin Vader who killed the Emperor. You know where I'm going with that. I won't dive. Now, as far as this outrage about lesbian Force babies, I don't think that it's that much of a big deal, because it's not like they got together, did sideways business, and bam, here comes 2 babies. One woman reached out with the Force and created this life and put it into the womb of another woman. Clearly they are lovers, but it's not like they actually had the kids like together or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't bump uglies to get the kids. It's almost the same exact situation as I was describing Plagueis creating this life form, it going into Shmi's womb, and her giving birth. Minus the relationship part, it's the same kind of situation. Now, however, on these topics, because I know I actually played a lot of these topics like they weren't that bad, and I don't think that they are. However, I do think that this episode was a very direct shot. I think that Leslie Headland knew exactly what she was doing with this episode and knew what the discourse was going to be like. And when it comes to making television, making a project that is supposed to be mass appeal, I don't think that aiming for the tension is the right choice. Because at the end of the day, even though I don't feel like this takes away from Anakin's story, it is definitely a parallel. It's almost the same, even down to Osha's fascination with the Jedi, and the way that she looks at their ship when she shows up is almost like Anakin, like, I get to go away with you and your starship. And then you got the whole Force baby thing, and very special. And then you throw in lines about the galaxy not accepting women like us, which I also don't think was a very bad line. I mean, it's kind of true. The Jedi have known, like, they don't trust other Force users ever, unless they're Jedi. And they definitely don't trust witches. We've seen that in Clone Wars with the Night Sisters and stuff like that. That's a thing. But the way that everything is presented is almost like a haha, self-insert, cry about it. And I don't think that that's the right course of action. So while I don't think that this episode necessarily ruined Star Wars, at least not any more than it kind of has been, I do think that this just put another huge fracture in the fandom just by playing on these lines and really close to them. I don't understand the thought process of wanting to go so close to the edge as to mess with the storyline of the Chosen One. That is sacred in Star Wars. Regardless if you like the prequels or the sequels or the OT, it does not matter. Anakin is the Chosen One. And I think that taking a strategy to play so close to the line with that and almost feel like you're trying to take away from it, I just think is the wrong way to go. But also I will say that I do like the idea of having other interpretations of the Force, seeing the way that other people view the Force. Because if the Force is in all living things, it combines all things, I think that it makes sense to have other Force users outside of the Jedi and Sith. That makes sense to me. But I also think that you need to be careful with the way that you play it. And the way that this is being played feels very intentional in a bad way. And even though I'm still rocking with the show, I'm curious, I want to find out, I want to get to the end, I see the discourse online. And it sucks, man, because like I said in my last review, there was a time where most of the fandom was united, and it's just not that way anymore. I think you could see how conflicted I am about this episode. I couldn't even give it really a rating. I don't know where to land on this one, because while I see the potential in the idea, I don't necessarily like the execution, but I'm still on board. I still want to find out what happens. I still want to learn about what happened with these twins along the way. I'm curious to know who this Master Sith dude looking guy is. I still think that this is all connected to Abeloth. Maybe the witches are part of some coven that is searching for, you know, the High Mother Abeloth. And I think that that would be really cool if it's executed right. So I don't really know what to expect about this next episode that we go into. I'm very curious to see the numbers when we do get them in the viewership and whatnot. So that's where I'm going to leave it, and I'm gonna throw it over to you guys. And I want to know what you think about this episode. I want to know if you liked it, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. Are you still rocking with the show? Are you not? Are you geeked up about any of the next episodes? And let me know some theories, and let's try to keep the conversation civil. I'm not about to do all of the arguing and stuff, but we could for sure have a debate. But I see the discourse online. I'm not falling into the trap. Make sure you like this video if you did enjoy the video, and if you thought any of my takes were okay, and it helps out the channel, and I appreciate it quite a bit, so thank you. And also go and hit that subscribe button too, so that you get notified when I drop another video, because we are going to be following this series until it's over. And if I missed anything on this breakdown or this review, let me know that too. But have a great day, be smooth, I'm out, and stay geeked up.